Another day, another War Thunder update. I've been playing War Thunder for a lot of years now, and honestly, Russian bias has kind of been a meme amongst the War Thunder community for God knows how long, probably since the beginning, as far as I can remember. However, it's always kind of stayed as a meme. It's never really been the reality. However, with the introduction of modern vehicles and much more advanced weapon systems, as well as the Ukrainian conflict that began in early 2022, War Thunder has really been pushing a very obvious Russian agenda in its game, intentionally creating Russian vehicles to be significantly more effective than their NATO counterparts. Anyone that watched my last video regarding the propaganda of this game, take everything I said and dial it up to 11, because nothing's really changed, and if anything, it's gotten even worse. Now, anyone that knows my thesis statement on this whole thing, it's very simple. Russia is not unbeatable in this game. As a matter of fact, it's the contrary. Russia in this game must always be able to counter whatever new addition is added to this game, and it will never fail that that's the case. I am convinced that the Russian state media, or just the Russian state in general, is in cahoots with Gaijin, saying, hey, our stuff must be able to do this, our stuff must be able to do this, or we will ban your game in our country. I am convinced that that is the case, because no matter what happens, no matter what is added for what faction where or who, it doesn't matter that Russia will always be able to counter it with some new addition. And let's just run an example real quick. The AH-64E has been added to the American tech tree as the new top-tier helicopter for America. Now, I'm not going to talk about the underpowered fire and forget missiles just yet. I will bring it up, but at the moment, I really want to focus on the LDIRCM properties of this helicopter. And at first glance, a lot of the Eastern mains may be like, well, no, look, now America has LDIRCM, so you can't really complain. Yeah, except the fact that a 10-3 SPAA on the Russian tree is specifically designed to counter it. Strela 10M is a 10-3 AA, and its missile, which is optical tracking with IR signature, is easily able to bypass the AH-64E's LDIRCM from any distance. It completely ignores it. However, take it on the flip side, the Mi-28NM also has LDIRCM, and that is the top tier featured helicopter for Russia. However, America's 12-0 SPAA, which features the AIM-9X Block 2, is easily fooled by the Mi-28NM's LDIRCM. Even though the Strela has only optical guiding and IR guidance, it is able to bypass the American LDIRCM, but the Russian Mi-28NM can fool the GNSS/GPS, the IOG, IR, and data link guidance of an AIM-9X Block 2. A 12-0 AA cannot beat what a Strela 10M can do. And speaking of Mi-28NM and AH-64E, I would just like to point out the elephant in the room of the new fire and forget missiles. And this comes back to whole Gaijin saying one thing and doing the other. There was a very long time in which people were asking for Russia and America and even China, which I'll touch on later, to get fire and forget missiles for its helicopters. Gaijin's rebuttal to that was, hey, we're only giving spikes and PARs to the European nations because those missiles are weaker, they do less damage, and it's not as bad to get hit by those versus a Lemur or an AGM-114L. Fair. That's a fair point to make. Except, with the addition of the update, they have finally added Lemurs, and then for some reason gave America AGM-179s? Which are just spikes and PARs? So they're weak and they're just like, I mean, I'm just confused here. Why couldn't the AGM-179 be added months ago? Where's the AGM-114L? Why are we getting spike level missiles, which could have been added to the game months ago? And yet, Gaijin decides to add him with this update, claiming that just because you get double the amount as you do a Lemure, they are the same value. Which anyone that knows anything about rockets and missiles damage in this game knows that that's a complete farce. This game will try to convince you that Russian tanks can tank a Maverick missile and be okay, or tank a Hellfire missile and be okay, whereas Russia can have broken Kh-38 MTs for years that one-shot everything from the next game away, and everyone's kind of just okay with it, while they also have the best SPAA in the game. And I'm talking about the Panzer at the time, and now the Buk M3. I mean, and this really where the bias starts to rear its ugly head, because even if you are a video game developer, balancing weapons and items amongst teams, why on earth would you artificially nerf the team's missiles that are slower than the team's missiles that are faster? Why does the slower missile do less damage than the faster missile that tracks further away? It actually makes no sense from a pure balance perspective, because as we stated earlier, Mavericks, there's no such thing as a hit marker with a Maverick in real life. Anything that gets hit by a Maverick dies, and it should be no different in this game. Gaijin continues to throw smoke, dance around topics, and cherry pick information that shows that American technology is just inferior to Russian technology in every way. Take a look at the Buk M3 and the Slam Ram for an example. Multipathing is not a thing in real life with modern missiles. AMRAAM C5 and C7 both should be able to ignore multipathing on all levels. The Buk M3 is also able to be fooled with multipathing. However, the biggest difference is the Buk M3 is intentionally designed to where when it is multipath, it has a large enough prox radius and large enough detonation radius that it doesn't even matter. You will lose a wing, you'll lose a rudder if it explodes near you. Why is the AMRAAM C7 artificially nerfed to have multipathing? And it is clearly affected by this drastically that any aircraft flying low enough can just dodge a C7, whereas a Buk M3 that suffers from the same exact mechanic can just ignore it by having a large enough explosion. I'm not even a game dev, and it doesn't take more than half a brain to see the balance issue there. If one nation has a large enough explosive in it to destroy the aircraft regardless of multipathing, then just make the weaker one not have multipathing.
There it is.
I don't get it. It doesn't make, there's no explanation for it other than a political agenda that your company is pushing to make one nation's technologies to look weaker than the other nations. Take a look at how stealth is completely neutered in this game and made to be a facade that is easily detectable by top tier SPAA. But for some reason, Russia can come out with LDIRCM, which apparently can just block A9X Block 2, block IRST. I mean, hell, the LDIRCM craps on stealth every single time because it's on a Russian helicopter. And I understand back now, oh, the AH-64E now has it, so who cares? Okay, but that goes right back to my Strela argument and how Russia is able to counter everything at all times. It doesn't matter what America has, because Russia is always going to be able to counter it with something. That is the rule of thumb with Gaijin. Other nations can have cool stuff like a stealth Comanche, a stealth bomber, whatever, tactical bomber, LDIRCM with fire and forget missiles. It doesn't matter, because Russia is always going to be able to counter it no matter what, because Russia in this game must always have technological superiority over other nations. Even if it's not true and artificially has to be done with the neutering of other nations' ordnance and equipment. And the bias extends a lot further than just the helicopters and the aircraft. It goes all the way down to the tanks, 2S-25M, 2S-38, dodging BR changes for years, the 2S-25M not having an autoloader model, just a lot of small convenient things for Russian tanks that do not that are not a thing on NATO tanks. I mean, look at this most recent nerf. As of September 24th, 2025, NATO tanks now pretty much don't have blowout panels. So while an autoloader in a T-90 can eat a DM-53 round and shoot back at you once and kill you, your blowout panels are no longer going to operate as they did before. So Gaijin can stay on top of nerfing American tanks and nerfing German tanks and nerfing all these NATO country tanks while they conveniently forget that their 10-0 super tank destroyer is missing its autoloader and has dodged BR changes for years now, as well as a 2S38 not having an autoloader modeled, Object 292 not having an autoloader modeled. All these convenient missing things on Russian vehicles to be destroyed, while an American vehicle can have a completely fabricated horizontal turret drive attached to its ring because it just fits the narrative of Russian tanks being stronger than American tanks. Even something newer like the BM Oplot, which has been added to the Japanese tech tree. Ironically, they're not giving it to Ukraine because they said they didn't have a lot of them or something. I don't think that's the case. I think that's just a blatant lie. There are tanks in this game that don't even exist. So I'm just really confused the reasoning why they couldn't give the Oplot to another nation. And on top of that, the Oplot is supposed to be the epitome of T80 evolution. However, it is weaker than in every way to the T80 BVM. And it's kind of funny because the BM Oplot is just called a BM Oplot in the game. Even when you hover over it and it gives you the full name of the vehicle, it only says BM Oplot. And the tinfoil hat side of me is telling me that they just are not allowed to call it a T-84. That the Russian state is telling them, like, you're not allowed to call it a T-84. You're not allowed to put it in the Ukrainian faction. The bias is so blatant that I actually believe those things. That's how bad it is, that I am willing to believe the conspiracy theories because everything else is so apparent. And I truly believe that the people that don't think that Russian bias is a thing in this game are completely deluded. You are lost in the sauce and obviously think that War Thunder's reality when it's just a video game. Don't forget that. It's a video game. And nothing in this game is realistic or attributed to real life. I would like to thank you if you got this far into the video. Look, I'm okay with there being a little bit of Russian bias in this game, dude. Like, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with a little bit of bias to help the Russians do good in this game because we all know if Russia was at its real-life capability in this game, they would get absolutely swamped. So if you have to artificially buff them to keep them up with NATO nations, that's okay. My problem is when you artificially nerf NATO nations and then artificially buff the Russian nation. Now we are getting into the point where political agendas are being taken. It is very clearly a politically motivated move, whether it's Gaijin being told to do X, Y, and Z from a foreign outlet, or if it's the developers themselves having a serious connection to Russian technology in the history of Russia. Either or, anyone that knows anything about video game balance, you don't even need to know anything about video game balance. The writing's on the wall. I don't know how anyone could not see this. It is so obvious. It needs to be addressed. They need to balance it out. Make the other nations have strong stuff. And don't make Russia able to counter everything. Also, quickly at the end, everyone's going to say, oh, well, China has all the same stuff. China has this, this, and that. But if you're looking at it in a vacuum, I could see what you're saying. But the fact of the matter is that China has trash CAS. They have okay SPAA. Okay. They have okay tanks. So if China is going to have a very powerful helicopter with LDI RCM, and whatever the CM502, I think it's called, to have those missiles, it's okay. Because they don't have a KH-38MT. They don't have a Buk M3. They don't have a T-90M. They don't have a nuke printing BMP-3, dude. Well, they do have a BMP-3. Actually, they do have a BMP-3, and it's kind of god tier. But the thing is that China doesn't have variety. They don't have much. So if all they have is a powerful helicopter, that's fine, dude. That's okay. But Russia also has the same thing with the most powerful SPAA, the most powerful air-to-ground missile, the most powerful helicopters, the most powerful light tanks. The BMP-2M it craps on everything. So as far as China getting access to this high-quality helicopter that can do all these things, I'm kind of fine with it. in context to what they have, I'm fine with it. The Russian bias in this game is getting so egregious. It needs to be dialed back. I really don't even see myself enjoying this game these days, because as soon as I see that I'm fighting a Book, Panzer, all this stuff, I just don't even want to play, because I know that my country is going to have inferior tech to this artificially empowered country in the game. Anyways, I could sit here for 30 minutes barking examples of all the bias in the game. The writing's on the wall, dude. Anyone that knows anything about gaming can see hand in hand a nation that is being artificially uplifted. So, if you made it this far into the video, I really appreciate it. Please leave a like, comment, tell me what you think, your opinion on everything, your experience with it. I want to hear it. I want to read the comments. And also, the biggest thing is go follow me on Twitch. I have my Twitch on the screen right here. The Twitch is the biggest thing for me. Go follow the Twitch. Come participate in live discussions. I talk to everyone, no matter what side you're on. I will talk to you. I don't care about, pushing what I think onto other people. I mean, obviously, I'm going to defend my points, but if you think otherwise than me, you're more than welcome to come into the Twitch chat and talk to me about it. I won't ban you for it or nothing like that. I will have open conversations with anyone. Thank you.